It's all about jarring your memory. It's all about remembering things from the past. And that is a huge part of this channel. It's becoming more and more a realization to me that the importance of this channel, especially when I talk about the Sunset Strip, is it's a way for us all to look back, to help the people that weren't there understand what it was like. And for those of us who were there, it's a way of bringing back the memories and bringing back the experience of being on the Sunset Strip, right in the thick of it, right when the action was hot, right when the bands were hot, the girls were hotter, and the music was loud. Man, unscripted, that's what you get on this channel. And sometimes the words roll off just like that. But man, I just did an interview. I don't know when this is going to air, when this episode will air and when my interview, but on my channel, I did an interview with James Michael, the lead singer for Sixx AM. Incredible singer, songwriter, producer. I mean, just the guy is just an amazing talent. And man, the crazy thing is our lives paralleled so much. He moved out to LA around the same time I did. He was on the Strip. He saw what was going on. He describes it as a magical time, and it was a magical time where, man, one night on the Strip could change your life. It could literally change your life, whether it would be getting a record deal or finding the love of your life or something tragic happening. It could always go either way. And man, there were many nights where it was all of the above, both beauty and tragedy, all in one night. And man, for him, he said this channel helped him remember what it was like. And
you and I have really kind of a similar trajectory as far as our careers go. I think we both moved out to LA around the same time. I moved out there, and I think it was somewhere between 87 and 89, which I think is around the time
Yep.
you went out there, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so we know what that was like. We know what it was like to live there. And one of my problems is that I don't have that memory that you have. You have such an incredible memory, and you're such an incredible storyteller. And I find that my memories of that time are kind of blurred. So I tune into your channel just so that I can relive that stuff. And so I just listen to your storytelling, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember that now. Now it's all coming back to me. So,
just recently, Rick Beato did an interview with Butch Walker. And, Butch Walker is the guy who has Marvelous 3. And he's a great producer and a great songwriter and, Atlanta-based guitarist. But, he started telling his story about how he had a band called South Gang. And South Gang, risked everything and went out to LA, a bunch of Southern boys playing hair metal. And they went out on the Strip. And I think this is before I actually started playing on the Strip, because I remember my band, the guys in my band, once I joined a Sunset Strip band, they started telling me, okay, here's our competition. Because I really didn't pay much attention to it until I was playing in a band on the Strip. I was an outsider just looking in and going, what's with all these guys wearing this, the pants and the hair and all this. And I was a kid from the South too. So, they told me, man, there's this band South Gang and they're really good, but they got signed. And I'm like, well, when are they playing? Let's go see them. Well, the label's doing what they're doing with them. And, I never saw South Gang or Butch Walker play, but I heard so much about that band, and I heard how good they were. And I was extremely curious, but it sounds like they went out there from Butch's, from his recollection, they went out there and they hustled, and within 10 months, they got a record deal, and that's a pivotal moment, and a lot of things can change, but that's just the beginning. Getting a record deal is no guarantee of success, and as far as I know, South Gang, I don't know if they ever got to release a record, but, for them, listening to Butch Walker, hear about, his band was signed, and then the band Jellyfish was signed at the same time. And when he went and saw Jellyfish, he realized, man, there's some other kind of music bubbling up here. And, we are not it. We are not the latest flavor. We are not the newest, greatest flavor. So he's realizing that from inside, from his place inside the music scene, and seeing what other acts the label is signing. Meanwhile, we're oblivious. We're on the Strip. There's girls everywhere. There's a party every night. There's packed clubs. And so you're thinking, man, everything is just as normal. And, in one of my recent episodes of, it was called Sunset Strip Book Club. And I read an article that was written on my band, but the headline of the magazine is, has Tough on the cover and says Last of the Strip Miners, and with the question mark. And this was months before Nirvana's first album came out. Everybody says, Nirvana came and just blew all the hair bands away. But man, these changes, these plans that these societal engineers had already probably made the decision that they're going to end the party on Sunset Strip. One of the greatest parties that ever was a night on the Sunset Strip, and they had built that house. Maybe it was the house that Van Halen built. Van Halen, man, who came and rescued hard rock, who came and saved us from Devo and the Knack and the Go-Go's. And I like all those bands just fine. They're okay, but they're not Van Halen. But here's the reality. None of the bands on the Sunset Strip were. A lot of us were trying to be the next Van Halen. A lot of us were trying to find David Lee Roth, and there was only one Van Halen. There was only one David Lee Roth, and the rest of us were just trying to, mimicking something we love. It's the monkey see, monkey do. And, I was trying to do something different and trying to make our music even more danceable than, say, Van Halen. And I know David Lee Roth, I had read that he had always tried to make sure that Van Halen's music had a good beat that you could dance to. And that's a wise thing, because, man, maybe why, metal today is a male-driven, thing, is gent and, what's the other thing? Math rock and all this kind of stuff, these Cookie Monster vocals. Man, you're not going to get any girls at your show doing that. I'm sure there's some girls that are into hardcore metal, but man, it's a dude fest. It's a sausage fest. And it's the same thing, to some degree, Metallica, thrash metal. It's mostly dudes that are into it. Yeah, there are a few chicks, but man, imagine the ratio at a Van Halen show in their prime. Probably more than half, maybe half or more would be females going to the show because of the sex appeal of Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth. And once that sex appeal got taken out of the music, man, you're going to shows and your mosh pit or whatever. That was never my idea of fun. Hey, let's go to a rock concert and get injured. That was never my idea of fun. But, it seems like the engineers of music had decided that they were going to take the world in a different direction. And man, grunge, the direction that grunge took people, and it was not a pretty sight, man. Promoting groups that are big time hardcore drug users, guys that got to a point, of Alice in Chains and Nirvana and stuff, where they just couldn't do shows anymore. They weren't durable enough. Lane Staley, was destroying himself through drugs. Kurt Cobain doing the same, and basically, he was having health trouble at a very young age, probably due to his lifestyle. Look, being on the road is very hard, very hard. You have to be very durable. And I would say that you have to be somewhat of an athlete, because it's going to push your body to the limit, going out there night after night and having to perform. And, Van Halen, while they were partying and raising Cain, David Lee Roth is certainly somebody that understood that he needed to get up and jog, that he needed to go out and rollerblade, that he needed to go do something to get some air in his lungs to try to help his body continue on. I heard, in the Noel Monk book that David Lee Roth would stretch for 2 or 3 hours before the show. I mean, imagine that, having to do that much preparation like an acrobat in order to do your show. I don't think there was ever a grunge act that would take it that serious. And, a lot of those guys, they didn't make it. How many grunge singers are left? One, Pearl Jam. That's it. And I wouldn't even, Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder was a surfer. And they brought him up from San Diego and brought him up to Seattle to sing for their band. I don't think he did hardcore drugs. I don't think he was, he had a grunge style and sound to his voice, and certainly alternative and all that. But he's the only guy still alive from that scene. And as far as the hair metal scene, those guys are older, but there's a lot of them still alive. They're still out there. Some of them are still performing. And some of them are still doing big shows like Guns N' Roses. I mean, Guns N' Roses was teetering on the brink of grunge and metal. They were the transition to get us to that point. And Guns N' Roses very much showed us that the scene needed to get more real. But man, they were also taking it in a very dark place. And those guys are all lucky to have survived. The fact that Guns N' Roses, all the original members are still alive is probably a small miracle. But man, like I said, things were working behind the scenes to change that hair metal scene, that LA Sunset Strip scene, which was a glorious scene. I mean, you could literally walk out on the street, walk out on that strip, and 2 minutes later, a limousine pulls up filled with beautiful girls, and one of those beautiful girls could just wrap her arms around you, and you'd be pulled into a limousine and have the night of your life. It's like no other scene in the world. It's just it's a shame that there's not a modern rock scene in Los Angeles that rivals that. It doesn't have to be hair metal. It didn't have to stay the same. My band was trying to do other things and add other elements and not be glam and, more funky and earthy and diverse in our songwriting to try and keep that scene going. But man, we could only do so much. And in 94, I pulled up my tent and I left LA, man. I got up and I left. And, it was in the long run. It didn't appear that when I first got to Nashville in 94 that I'd done the right thing. But in the long run, moving to Nashville in 94 extended my career by decades, Nashville's one of the few places in the world where I think you could be 40 and probably do something. I don't know if you're going to get a tour, but you might end up writing a song. You might end up playing a bunch of gigs. I mean, you're not totally shut out of the loop because there's so many musicians and there's so many from young kids to older guys that are still there working and playing music. But the Sunset Strip scene, while Nashville might have 300 stages and all these musicians playing, they're all pretty much playing covers. Sunset Strip was unique in that, man, you played 90% originals. You would, a lot of bands would sometimes put one cover song in the set, something to kind of fire the audience up and give them a familiar earworm. But for the most part, man, you were out there playing your original music and working hard on a goal to build your own brand. It was wild. It was decadent. Anything could happen, on an average night. You had a few too many, and you limped back home to the valley. And on an above average night, you went on a complete adventure and have a crazy story to tell. The Sunset Strip was a unique scene, and man, I think we all who experienced miss those wild, crazy nights.